Welcome everyone to the first episode of Krea Prelude, an exclusive talk hosted by the students at Krea, a space where trailblazers step in to share their unconventional stories of breaking the norm, staying true to one's passion, and taking the road less traveled by. Today, we have the amazing cartoonist, illustration, wildlife buff, Rohan Chakravarty with us. A memorable encounter with a beautiful tigress bathing in Nat Geo Wildlife Sanctuary waterhole led him to give up a career in dentistry and take up drawing for wildlife and conservation. He founded Green Humor, a series of comic strips where he brings humor and art to the table to create awareness for some of today's most critical and urgent environmental narratives. Green Humor is India's first internationally syndicated comic strip on Go Comics. And besides Green Humor, he has done cartoons and illustrations for other publications and organizations such as WWF, Nat Geo Traveller, IDFC, Standard Chartered Bank, Titan, Istock, and also has written books called Green Humor for a Green Planet, Naturalist Rudy, and Bird Business. We are very excited to have him here today. Hi, Rohit.
Thank you for the introduction, Sagarika, and thanks to Krea University for considering me worthy of being a trailblazer, so to say. I don't call myself that. I think I'm a very bad influence on people and their careers. So I hope to be of some use to the audience through this session.
I think the audience will learn a lot from you today. Shall we dive into the questions?
Absolutely, please, yes.
Okay, so we'll begin with your journey. Growing up, being an artist, doing a profession in art was something I couldn't even think about because it was called useless and not professional and just a hobby and unpayable, right? And seeing you take that leap from something we would call conventional, such as dentistry, to something in the opposite direction, like animation and then cartooning, is something I genuinely respect and I think is very brave and inspiring. I would like to know what that leap was like, and was it scary?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm actually surprised that it's still the case because I would think this is a thing about my generation that that didn't consider art as a viable career option. I would have expected things to change by your time, but it's surprising that it hasn't still. Yes, so when I started out, of course, I didn't know what else to do with my life and my art, so I joined the rat race, and thinking that dentistry would be a day job and I could make art whenever I wished to. But the pull of art was such that I was never satisfied with not doing it professionally. And after I completed my dentistry course, I decided to have a career in animation. There is one compulsory year of internship as a dentist that you need to complete. So during that time, I skipped my patient quota entirely. And thankfully, some of my teachers were very kind to me to give me the necessary signatures to pass my internship. And I used that year to self-train for a career in animation. I worked in the animation industry for 4 years, and that eventually helped me, gain the necessary skills and the kind of professional ethics that it takes to be a full-time cartoonist. During those entire formative years, it was never something that was steady. I had to take up various gigs, various jobs. I sang part-time. I did all kinds of odd jobs to sustain myself. Then after I eventually secured a job in the film studio that I worked for as an animator, that kind of gave me some kind of stability to pursue cartooning in my free hours. It was only after I conducted my first solo exhibition, which thankfully turned out to be a success, that I got the financial footing to pursue my career as a cartoonist.
That's such a spectrum of a journey. And I was wondering, have you ever regretted it? Leaving that?
Absolutely not. If I am given a chance to restart, I think I would take the same, more or less the same course, except maybe dentistry. Wasting 5 years in dentistry is something that I could have avoided. But then I also feel that the kind of frustration it built in me, that and the way I channeled it in my art, I don't think any other way would have resulted in the same kind of art that I create today. So I'm thankful to every turn that my journey has taken.
That's amazing. Throughout your years of studying dentistry, have you seen, correlated, or taken something from that field and weaved it into like the cartoons and work that you're doing now?
Well, birds don't have teeth, so I think I think it's completely different what I do today. But of course, there are some things about animal dentition that come up in my comics once in a while. Especially forensics. Forensic dentistry is something I refer to a lot in my book Naturalist Reddy. I don't know if you've read it, but there are a few stories where Reddy actually takes impressions of various animals to find out which species has created holes in a bamboo in one of the mysteries. And I think that's where dentistry came into some kind of use for me 10 years down the line.
So in Krea, we're all about interwovenness, and your career is just that, a mix of different fields, green, art, and humor. How do you find the relation between them, and how did that interest you in twisting these threads together, all these three different fields?
Well, to be honest, when I started out, I wasn't really finding my feet. I was drawing about all kinds of things, social issues, political issues. I tried my hand at drawing Bollywood caricatures as well. Thankfully, none of it worked out. Eventually, I met a tigress, and then I got the idea of drawing wildlife cartoons, because when I started out, there was no creative communication happening in terms of wildlife conservation or the environment. Now, of course, there are quite a few people doing it, but that wasn't the case 10 years back, 12 years back. And then it was this tigress that prompted green humor, because I always had a dormant interest in wildlife and wildlife biology. At one point, I always also wanted to be a biologist. I realized I don't have the patience for it. But yeah, I think that moment it's still very very vivid and very clear in my memory, because that is the sight that prompted me to take information around wildlife and see if I could convey it in humorous visuals. And eventually, green humor was born.
We have to be thankful for that, tigress.
Oh yeah, given that tiger's lifespan is just about 15 years in the wild, I don't think she's alive anymore. But wherever she is, I do, I'm always grateful to her.
Your characters embody anthropomorphism, making them so relatable. Yeah. How do you decide the traits of these characters and then make them seem like they're so relatable, like my neighbors and stuff like that?
So anthropomorphism is something that most cartoonists rely on to make their characters relatable, even if they are other inanimate things, not necessarily animals. But what I do, or what I would like to think I do differently, is that a lot of my anthropomorphism is based on wildlife biology. It is a stretch. It is me stretching the boundaries of storytelling, yes. But at the same time, I also like to be a bit factual about what the animal represents. The story I am telling about the animal. It has to have some kind of factual correctness. So, for example, if there's this comic about say marine animals and the world records they hold. So each of those facts is actually correct, even though the animal is trying to tell a story in a way that is not actually possible. So that's a kind of a balance I like to maintain in my storytelling, because as somebody who communicates science through cartoons, I think that is a responsibility that I must take, to be sure of a certain degree of factual correctness, even though my subjects are cartoons.
This kind of also leads into the next question. So I came across your talk at Nature in Focus in 2017, and these two lines stayed with me. A cartoonist is not a leftist or rightist, but a sadist, and a good cartoonist is a criminal without restraint. So your sense of humor is impeccable, and it definitely translates into your work. It makes it very fascinating, relevant, and understandable to people. And so when creating pieces that have such overlying activism highlighted in bold, how do you make this collaboration of humor and seriousness work?
I'm sorry, I never think of myself as an activist. Activists get killed on the streets in this country these days. My job is much easier. Of course, drawing cartoons is hard, is very difficult. Gathering so much information, processing all of it into funny visuals. It is a difficult job, but it's nothing compared to what activists and environmentalists do. I mean, that their jobs are really tough. So I wouldn't be a blaspheme and call myself that. I'm just an artist doing my job. Uh, and yeah, I think what the tone that certain comics take, because they are based on the intersection of politics and the environment. A lot of environmental decisions that are made in this country are inadvertently socio-political in nature, because so many lives depend on wildlife, on the shared space that wildlife and people cohabit. And that's something unavoidable in a country like us. Yeah, that's where I think things get a little interesting, a little heated up for my audiences, because some obviously tend to take political sides. Some people agree with my content, some people don't, and that of course affects the readership also to a certain extent.
Do you ever feel like you find yourself in like this balance where you need to figure out how, like for this post, I need to make this more humorous and or less sciencey and more about what I'm trying to, the ratio between these two, seriousness and humor?
So one thing that people get wrong about my work is calling them posts. I don't look at my comics as something that are created for social media. That has never been the intention. Most of my
I'm
comics
sorry.
are created for the. Oh no, that's. I don't blame you. I'm just stating a fact. Because most of my comics are created for a print column. I used to run four of them. Now I'm down to one because of various issues. But yeah, most of the comics that you see on social media are actually published in my print column with the Hindu, and there's also an online wildlife magazine called Round Glass Sustain, which carries my column every week. My comics are seldom intended only for social media, and that tends to happen only when there is an issue of current importance that needs to be spoken about immediately. So yeah. What was your question again about the balance between
Yeah.
science and
About
science
the
and
human aspect, serious aspect, or what you're trying to say about like the science and like humor.
right? So my bottom line for judging my work is that it should make me smile and it should make me retain what I'm trying to portray. If it has done that job on me, I'm sure it'll do that job on my audience as well, because I generally assume that I am slightly dumber than my readers. And I think that approach really works for my comics.
I feel like your posts show that you're way more intelligent than all of us, educating us on all of the
No,
science
no,
stuff.
no,
Because
no,
I think
please, no. I trust me. I have very low IQ, and my powers of retention are extremely poor. So, comics are a way for me to retain and learn new things, and then it goes out to the rest of the world.
comics are a really good medium to learn, though. Um, my next question is, what are some tips that you can give to budding artists and wildlife enthusiasts who want to find a suitable platform to voice their opinions, style, and form?
I actually don't have tips to give to anybody. I'm actually seeking tips from youngsters, because they seem to be doing so well on social media and taking their art in so many different directions. I really don't know what to do with social media or the internet, frankly. I belong to a generation that's really struggling to find their feet on the internet. So I think I should refrain from giving tips here and actually seek tips from listeners in terms of where I should take my art now that the print is dying, that newspapers are going out of business. What do you think I should do with my art? Please let me know in the comments.
I think you're doing great with your art. You have such a great presence on like social media and the way that you portray your art, even on like the publications. Like I've seen, like that you're doing a great job.
I hope so. Thank you. Thanks for the reassurance.
I have a few questions about the creative process.
Yeah.
So, um, first, like a general question, what is your whole process for making the comic strip or illustrations, from deciding the characters, which animal to represent what, how to show that representation, and then storyboarding to like the message you want to send out?
The process actually is really random. It could result from actually seeing an animal on a nature trek or a bird watching spree, to reading about something that has caught my interest in a book, watching a wildlife documentary, or I'm reading something interesting in an encyclopedia. I read a lot. I read a lot about wild animals, their ecology. I have a wife who's an urban ecologist. My brother is studying bats. He's studying to be a bat biologist. So I have inspiration within my family, and I keep learning, new things from them every day, and that keeps me going. If there's something that has really caught my interest, I first like to learn through and through about my subject, and only then attempt, something creative in terms of storytelling around that subject. So it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of observation when I can, and technically speaking, the process of creating a comic strip always begins with a very roughly drafted storyboard, designing the characters, placing them in certain frames. I'm a very visual person. I'm a very visually oriented person. So the drawing comes to me before the words do, always. So I think that's where I work very differently from other cartoonists, because I think most other cartoonists use a textual prompt to come up with a visual, but for me it's the reverse. It's always the visual first.
That's amazing. I'm also a very big visual person. Even with the art that I do, I start out with like drawing it and then thinking about what I want to write. So.
Oh, great. Then I'm not an anomaly. I have company.
Yeah. My next question, something that I also really want to know about is, do you ever get writers or artist block, and how do you deal with it?
Every day, every single day. I think I have one going on right now. And how do I deal with it? Earlier, I used to struggle a lot. I think it was something that was very crippling, and I didn't know how to get over it. But eventually, I figured out that it is just an indication that you need a break. And it's your art trying to tell you, listen, chap, drop what you're doing, go take a walk, go watch some birds, listen to some music, cook some nice food, and come back to the desk. And that's exactly what I do now. There's no point struggling against a creative block. If you try to wrestle with it, it'll defeat you. So the best thing is to just take a few steps back, enjoy yourself, and come back to it.
That sounds really nice. Now that even though like everything has turned digital, I've heard that you started out as a traditional drawing on print cartoonist, and as a traditional artist myself, for a long time I had the notion that digital artists got an archive of art served to them on a platter for them to make. But now as a digital artist too, I see how unique and hard it is and the different effect that it creates. So have you seen a change in the impact of your work depending upon the medium, and which one do you prefer more?
To be honest, I prefer the print, because a lot of meaningful interaction results from the print. I have had readers analyze my work, take the trouble of analyzing my work and discussing with me on email. And these are mostly readers who read my newspaper columns. Social media is full of trolls. Social media is full of extreme self-entitlement. People who know nothing about art will come and tell you you're stupid, and that happens every day. Because a lot of my content is not agreeable with a lot of people. So of course you have to learn to take it in your stride and move ahead. And eventually, when you're doing this for years, you do develop a thick skin, and that's really essential to keep your sanity as an artist in these days, when anybody and everybody on the internet is entitled to comment on your work. So I think we were speaking about what advice I would like to give to younger artists. This is it. I mean, focus on developing a thick skin, because that's what will keep you going for the rest of your career. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to like be a public artist on social media with everybody just staring at every move you're doing. Yeah. Lastly, before we go to the next segment, what do you think is one thing that someone should take from your comics about respecting wildlife and nature? And how do you think that one could integrate this into their daily life, be it very small as well?
I think different kinds of people process art differently and also process nature differently. So I can't be the one telling people how they'd like to, uh, behave or act with respect to my subjects. But what I would like to sort of pass on through my art is the curiosity for the natural world. Even if I've done that with my readers, I think I've done my job. So if my readers grow curious about my subjects, they want to read up about it more, they want to find out about it more, eventually I feel that they would be interested in saving it as well. And that's my pure and simple goal with my comics. What was the second question? I'm sorry, I keep losing
How do
track.
you think that one could integrate this into their daily life, be it very small?
Right. Uh, I think the simplest of steps can, ensure that we are connected with nature, even if we don't have jobs that are directly related to it. So I'm a cartoonist. I draw about nature, and that could be, that could be a one point of contact for you. You are an artist, even if you create pieces that are environmentally sensitive. Once in a while, I'm not saying every piece of yours should be directed at the environment. But once in a while, if you create something that is environmentally sensitive, people will take note. People will probably a handful of people who have seen your art will get inspired. And and yeah, I think that that's the way to go about it. There are so many ways that we can integrate some kind of responsibility, environmental responsibility in our day-to-day lives. Whatever measures we take in terms of reducing our carbon footprints, just becoming more aware, voting more responsibly. I think that's really necessary in these times. Voting green, and yeah, I think there's so many ways to integrate environmental responsibility in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, there was this post that I saw of yours, one about the shells and how we're not supposed to pick, like
Yeah.
when we pick stuff from the beach. And I think after looking at that
Yes.
post, we like just went to like a beach then, and then my sister was picking up shells, and then I told her about this, and we just put them back. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. These are the tangible impacts of your work an artist lives for. And the fact that my comic has touched you that way and that it has eventually gone on to impact your sister as well is what I would call a tangible impact of one of the comics I've drawn. And I'd personally like to have more of these instances for my art in future. So thank you. Thanks a lot for that. That means a lot.
Thank you. Um, let's move on to our next segment. It is called Rapid
All right.
Pictionary. And it's which
Rapid
animal
what?
represents Pictionary. Pictionary.
Pictionary.
So,
Okay. Okay.
do you have a book and a pencil around you? We
Yes, I do. As I was instructed. Yeah.
Yes. Um, so it's called Which Animal Represents, and you'll be given a
All
minute
right.
time, and you have to draw which animal represents this prompt, if you can. It could
All
be
right.
however
Okay.
you like to draw it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah.
I'll do my best.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so the first prompt is which animal represents procrastination, according to you?
Procrastination. Wow. Okay. Gosh, I really have to think on the go, and this is not something I'm good at. Procrastination. All right. I have to draw this and show you.
Yes, if you can.
Wow. Okay. Sure. The first thing that comes to my mind is a roosting bat. When you say procrastination, they're actually very busy animals. I don't mean to demean bats like that, but sorry, it's the first thing that came into my mind. I need more time to think. Maybe I'll do better in the next question.
You can take your time. It's all right. The next one
All right.
is which animal represents tardiness?
Tardiness. Wow. Okay. Gosh, you're asking me to insult animals, and I'm doing this with a very heavy heart. Tardiness. What's a tardy animal? Maybe again, I mean no offense, but a toad is what came to my mind when you said that. So
It's a very beautiful toad. Next one is, which animal represents those people who reply to your text with like one word, one line, you know?
Okay, interesting. Which animal is great. I know this one. It will have to be a stork because storks have they don't have very active pharynxes, so they only reply in grunts, and I think that's that's what comes to my mind when you pose that question. Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting fact. The last one is, which animal do you think represents you, like your spirit
Oh,
animal?
that's easy. That's easy. I really relate to this creature. And if you've read any of my books, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a pangolin that has rolled up itself into a ball in defense because I'm not a very social animal. This is my first response when I get a phone call or I'm asked to meet new people. I roll up into a ball myself.
I relate to that. That's my like constant state of existence. Okay, well, this was the end of this short segment. And
Okay, I'm glad. That was quite unnerving.
but you did great. The drawings are really great.
I hope so. I hope so.
They were. The last segment is basically the question and answer segment that we have that people can put in the comments section as well here. But we also got a few questions from the sticker that we put yesterday. The first question is from Viti. Do you question whether your art is bringing some change? How do you reinforce your belief in it?
Well, I just did after your comment that you stopped picking up seashells after reading my work. So it's really these kind of responses. A lot of people write to me after reading my comics, either in the print or even social media. People comment on social media. People reach out and the messages sometimes, and most of it is quite heartwarming, quite endearing. I've had people tell me that they've stopped buying civet coffee after reading my cartoons on civet coffee. They've stopped buying a lot of unsustainable products. Some women have said that they've switched to eco-friendly options of sanitation. No, I mean sanitary products after reading one of my comics on it. So these are instances where I've had a reader help me reinforce my belief in my art because it has touched their lives. And there have also have been instances where my art has been used in specific conservation campaigns directed at particular species. They've served as campaign mascots. They've served as visual depictions of a national park or a tiger reserve. And these are things that are really needed today because creative communication goes a really long way in bridging communication gaps between science and people. So I think I'm doing my bit in very small ways, and wherever it has made impacts, it has been visible.
The next question. This is from Sandhya 31. Is it not disheartening at times to write about the depressing reality of our planet?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's something you have to deal with day in and day out, especially when politically things are so hopeless right now, and it's simply not going anywhere. But then you've got to hold on to some hope as an artist, and you've got to project, even if you are a pessimist in real life, you've got to project a certain degree of optimism in your art, and I think that's the hardest part. Keeping that thread of optimism intact, because a lot of things are just not working out in India right now, and of course that's not something I would like my reader to take away from my work. I would like to project that individual and collective action can still bring about change. So it's difficult, but that's what an artist has got to do.
Yeah, huge burden on your shoulders. Another question. This is from the chat, from Rohan. They were wondering I just wonder how we can make your wonderful cartoons accessible to kids and adults living in villages around our forests.
They're actually already accessible to kids and adults living around villages in various forms. I have a book called Where's Gaju's Herd? It was a wordless coloring book, coloring come comic book done for the Wildlife Trust of India for an elephant conservation campaign. It's gone to most villages in central and eastern India. My book, Making Friends with Snakes, which is about mitigating snake conflict, snake bite, and resulting conflict between snakes and people. That's been translated to 9 regional languages and has been distributed across India. It's a Pratham publication. Similarly, all the projects I do with forest departments are aimed at local communities that live around specific national parks and tiger reserves. So my work is already very accessible to a regional audience, and I'm taking as many steps as I can to ensure regional translations and publications.
That's amazing. I actually wanted to ask you about the regional publications, but
All right.
answered my question.
Of course, you don't see a lot of it on social media because social media is just one part of my work. So
yeah. We have a few more questions. Another one is from Rohan Traveller. When is your next book coming out?
My next book is not coming out anytime soon. I did 2 books last year, and I'm quite exhausted of books. I'm devoting more time to projects that are financially more viable, sadly, because doing 2 books did take a toll on my finances. Books are not something that pay very well in India, especially if you're not a Twinkle Khanna or a Karan Johar or a Chetan Bhagat. So I'm not them yet, at least. So yeah, I have to balance a lot of things with respect to my career. So this year is devoted to slightly more stable and financially rewarding projects.
So you're going to work on your illustrations and just your publications with all your newspapers and stuff like that?
No, actually, I in fact lost a newspaper column this year. So even the cartooning side of it has been, suffering. So I'm taking a lot of freelance work this year with NGOs and other kind of organizations, mostly international. For example, right now I'm doing a project for Aquabams, which is an agreement on cetacean conservation between Mediterranean countries. And I'm doing a series of cartoons that explain the issue of the conflict between dolphins and fishermen. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah.
That's amazing. Can't wait to see it when it's out.
Somebody asked me about my dogs. Thank you. I'm glad you asked. They're outside. They can't be on a session because they'll cause rather unruly disruptions. So I don't take that chance.
What are your dogs' names?
Shrishti and Sakshi. 2 Indies.
Indies. Nice. Yeah. Do you own any other pets?
Well, right now I'm staying with 4 because my wife's family has also moved in with me temporarily, and they have 2 dogs as well. So there are 4 dogs in my house right now.
Oh, we've got a question from Amrita Trip, old millennial here. Which is your favorite Indian wildlife sanctuary?
My favorite Indian wildlife sanctuary? Wow. I have so many. Right now, I'll name Eagle Nest. I think that's my favorite bird watching destination. So that would make and there's a reason behind it. A lot of my art has been used there very well by the Bugun community in community conservation. I've done a lot of work with the forest department there, and first and foremost, my first day in Eagle Nest, I saw the Bugun Leochikla, which is one of the rarest birds in India. So I got lucky there, and that memory really stayed with me. So Eagle Nest comes to my mind first when you ask me that question.
That's amazing. I definitely have to visit.
Every Indian, I think, must visit that place at one point in their lives. Where can I find a black jaguar in India? I just saw a comment in a car showroom. Jaguars do not exist in India in the wild. They are found in South America.
Interesting. I did not know that. A lot of animals have been getting extinct here in India, though, right?
Yeah, I think the daily rate of extinction now stands at 150 species per day, but that's global. I don't know how much of it is
Yeah.
happening in India, but yeah, it's definitely happening in India because there's all kinds of policies going wrong everywhere.
We got two other questions. One from Priya Tursari. Book or daily cartoons? What gives you more satisfaction as an artist?
Wow, this is a very subjective question. I don't think I have a specific answer to that because a lot of the comics I create are personal that go up into my column. They're very personal issues. Animals I like, species I relate with, but also and a project that is immersive and exhaustive and makes me break my own boundaries, my own shell of comfort. That is something that I really enjoy doing. For me, the latest such project was Natural Study, my last book, because that required me to undo everything, undo the entire process that I created for my comics, learn new things, read scientific papers, figure out a way to make them into mystery stories, and have my detective mongoose solve cases.
Yeah.
So detective stories were not something that I was fond of as a reader ever, but I actually engaged with detective literature, mystery films, all these detective classics, only for the sake of creating natural study. So yeah, I think it is immersive projects like these that give me the most amount of satisfaction. Thanks, Priya, for that question.
Do you now like mystery, like the genre, the detective genre?
Absolutely, yes. I'm a big fan now. I've watched all the classics, so much so that even in my book, I paid tribute to some of the classics in postcards and even in the
Yeah.
stories. And yeah, I can't put a book down again. Be it Sherlock Holmes or Satyajit Ray or now I'm reading Harini Nagendran's latest book called The Bangalore Detective Club. So yeah, I'm hooked by the genre already.
That's amazing. um, we have a question from Rohan Ban, 12. They ask what motivates you.
Various things motivate me, but I think it's the curiosity to find out more about the natural world. I'm really driven by that. I think every day I learn something new thanks to my work and thanks to the way I approach wildlife and ecology. So I think it's the curiosity that's the essential driver of what I do.
Anisha VGN asks you, have you ever gotten threats from the point of view you shared through your comics?
Several times, yes. I will not. I can't name some of these organizations or people, but yes, my editors have been called. My whereabouts have been asked for. Uh, Unofficial threats I keep getting once every week on my DMs or on email, and I think it's a reality that artists uh, who refer to politics even remotely have to live with in today's times.
Yeah, but that's very scary.
It is, yes, and of course you have to decide where you want to draw the line as an artist or a commentator.
Yeah, definitely. Rohin Rajashekaran asks, what are your thoughts on people engaging in extreme sports and camping? What do we need to what do we need to be mindful about in terms of choosing camp equipment? Interesting question.
I have a lot of problems with the way ecotourism is approached in India, especially the adventurous side of things and the way it is marketed. A lot of things like mud racing and off-roading do not take into account that the seasons when they are held are actually nesting seasons for birds that and when I say birds, not every bird nests on trees. So people who conduct these events and who advertise these events need to be mindful of the ecology of certain things. Because, for example, off-roading events are the greatest threats to lapwings and ground nesting birds, and nobody really takes these things into account. Often it is ecotourism ventures run by the government that promote a lot of these activities. So I think the involvement of science is extremely crucial in any kind of ecotourism promotion, and there should be a body of scientists governing these activities, no matter which corner of the country they're happening in. be it Ladakh, be it a rainforest in South India, be it in the deserts of Rajasthan. There is an ecological component to every habitat, and no measure should be implemented without a scientific survey.
Shrija asks, do you believe veganism can be the true way forward for reversing our environmental damage?
Absolutely not. No, I think it's a Western fad, and I think it does not apply to a country of so many political and social realities like India. I think sustainable consumption, yes, is absolutely the answer, but veganism is not something that is meant for this part of the world. In my very humble opinion, you are free to contradict me, you're free to argue with me, but this is my personal opinion.
Should we take a last question?
Sure.
So this is from Balraj Kapini. Given a choice, would you like to live amongst wildlife, or you are more happy in a concrete jungle?
Wow. I am happiest where there's an intersection of both. Of course, I am used to a certain creature comforts as a human being. But yes, I'm also not a big city person. I do very badly in metropolitan. So I think I would best describe myself as a small town guy who's at peace and in a my hometown, for example, Nagpur is still not as big as metropolitans. It still has pockets of green around where I live, and I'm really lucky to have that. And I think I function best in small cities which are still connected to wildlife and ecology in one way or the other.
Well, since that was the last question anyways, and maybe we could wrap up the live, I would like to thank everyone and Rohan for this talk, and thank you for everyone for tuning in. See you at the next Krea Prelude.